Hello, everybody. Good morning. It's Lisa Copeland, and this is my Big Sellers Live sales meeting that for at least a week I'm going to do in front of all of my followers. And then at that point, it transitions into the Big Sellers Mastermind group. And we're recording it all, and I am bringing to you experts, people that are the best of the best in their industry when it comes to sales. And so if you're out there, no matter what you're selling, whether you're selling yourself, you're selling a product or service, you are always constantly being judged. And so today I have brought you a guest that not a lot of you know, but you should know her because she's amazing. And her name is Robin Goad. She is with Amazon. I have known Robin for many, many years, and I have seen her lead global teams with Fortune 5, Fortune 100 companies, all the way to the very top, to the pinnacle of success. And her position at Amazon is going to be no different. Robin, good morning. Welcome.
Hi. Thanks for having me, Lisa. Wow. I don't know if I believe all that press that you just gave me.
Girl, I have so many stories about how you brought the biggest Homeland Security deal ever to Dell. But I'm going to let you give everybody a little more of your background because I'm not doing you service. And we've got some great people on here today and everyone's tuning in. People were super excited to hear from you. So tell us where you've been and tell us where you are today.
Yeah, so I've been in high-tech sales for about 25 years. It started in the 90s at Dell, and I actually just fell into this career. My background, I have a degree in journalism, and it turns out if you're really good at asking questions and you're curious, you make a really good salesperson. So started at Dell in the 90s, and then was there for a great career, 17 years. Like you said, I worked in the federal business after 9/11. I worked on a global scale in India and Singapore, leading an alliances organization. And then when I left Dell after that career, I became a chief marketing officer for some startup companies in Austin around artificial intelligence. And then now I find myself at Amazon. I've been here for about 6 months, and I love it. It's a great culture. It's crazy, but been here about 6 months, and I'm just learning the ropes, to be honest.
Well, you said something, and then I want to go back to one of your really big wins at Dell Computer, but you said something that is so important out there if you are in sales. And you said you had a degree in journalism, but your curiosity is what made you a great sales executive. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, Lisa, I did a little prep thinking about this talk today. And you told me that you wanted me to talk about emotional intelligence when it comes to selling. And one of the things that I actually wrote down was about that curiosity. And if you look at leadership principles, I know that's a buzzword, but a lot of organizations now develop leadership principles that they hire to. It's the hire the skill, hire the will, train the skill. And so curiosity is one of the qualities that I think makes a great salesperson. And it goes to, you've heard the adage that great salespeople are great listeners. And I would say asking questions and not being afraid to come across as not knowing all the answers and being authentic in those questions, it's really served me well in my career. I never am fearful to ask, tell me more. Why is that? Why do you feel that way? And at the end of the day, I'm really just trying to dig deep so that I can understand where my client is, what they're trying to solve. And so asking questions is definitely something that I think sales folks, we're great talkers, but we really need to be great listeners.
And I think that's where emotional intelligence comes in. I've trained sales organizations from Fortune 1, Fortune 5, as have you. I've not hired for them, but I've been brought in as a consultant where you have hired for these organizations. So, I always get brought in when, the VP of sales calls, we're stuck. We're stuck.
Yeah.
Come, motivate us. Okay. You're the one hiring that sales team at that level. So what are you looking for besides curiosity? Somebody comes to you and they've had an illustrious sales career and you sit down in an interview. What are some of your triggers to either love that person or not love that person?
Yeah. I used to have all these formulas, to be honest. And they were things like, I'll tell you, so back on the leadership principles, having just got hired at Amazon, I just went through the interview process here, and they hire on leadership principles. Prior to joining Amazon, I was at Gartner, also leadership principles. They have a list of leadership principles that they're hiring for. And what I would tell anybody that's in a hiring manager position is look at those leadership principles that make someone successful at your organization. Have those front of mind. So is being curious one of your leadership principles? Is driving for success, and I mean bias for action, right? If you look over your sales or people on your team or in your organization that are successful, what are the qualities, even if your organization doesn't have those leadership principles, what are the qualities that you see in your successful salespeople? And write them down yourself, right? What is it that makes someone really great? I will tell you, in my last job before I was here, I was a hiring manager. And again, I had all these leadership principles. I had these questions that I would ask to try to get people to tell me what motivated them, trying to get them off of the interview track and actually figure out who they really are. And at the end of the day, I know this sounds silly, but if I was bored 10 minutes into a conversation with a candidate, then my clients would probably be bored with that person as well. If I didn't trust them 10 minutes into the conversation, my clients wouldn't trust them either. And I actually just stopped interviews if I was 10 minutes in and I did not feel that this person was passionate and they weren't convincing me in their best self, right? An interview is the very best you're ever going to get of somebody. So if you're hoping that interview, maybe this person will be better, no, the interview is the best you're ever going to get.
That's such a good point.
If you're not like blown away with this person's passion or their curiosity or their bias for action, if they're not following up with you after the interview, then guess what? They're not going to do it whenever. I just interviewed someone the other day, and I purposefully asked her to send me over a write-up. So, that was a really good statement that you made just a minute ago, but I didn't get all that down. Would you mind to send me an email and send me that? Because that was really good, and I want to make sure that I put that in your interview file. She never sent me the email. So if someone isn't going to send you an email in an interview, they are certainly not going to follow up with you once they get the job. So,
okay, so bottom line is, you're not going to hire that person, are you?
Nope. I said no. And what's unfortunate is I had a really good impression, and I was going to put that person forward. And then because they didn't follow up with me and send what I asked, I changed my answer to no, do not proceed.
So that's so interesting. If you're just now tuning in, I've got Robin Goad on the show today. And Robin is a sales executive with Amazon, has had a fabulous career in the Fortune 1, Fortune 5 sector, hired at the highest levels, put together some of the biggest deals in some companies' histories. And so I want to go back to the deal that I know very well. I don't know it personally, but I kind of lived it with you. And that was you putting together the Homeland Security deal for Dell Computer. And, that took some emotional intelligence. And so I want to talk about how you procured the deal and then how you advanced it forward, because that really, in my opinion, all the years I've known you, at least I think that's got to be one of the biggest feathers in your cap.
Yeah, it was until I did the joint go-to-market venture between Dell and the Tata Group in India. When I look back at that, those are the two things that I'm most proud of in my career, as just my own self, creating and solving something. But I'll tell you, in my older age, actually what I'm most proud of are the people that I've been able to hire and train and watch those folks flourish. I used to think for the first 25 years that leadership was about me. And what I've learned in the last, 5 to 10 years is leadership is nothing to do with me, and it's everything to do with my people. So I've grown into really appreciating being a leader of people and helping them reach their potential, much more so than my personal. But those deals, you can see the smile on my face. I mean, they were fun, right? So the Homeland Security one was, this was right after 9/11, and I was on a plane traveling back and forth between Austin and Washington, D.C., and one of the deals that we were tracking for a large program was called the U.S. Visit Program. It was being hosted out of the Department of Homeland Security. It was securing our borders and understanding who was coming in, who was leaving, how long they were here, where they were going when they were here, that sort of thing. And it wasn't a real well-known program, and I was sitting on a flight late at night traveling back from D.C. to Austin, and there was a line for the restroom in the back of the plane, and I saw the U.S. Visit logo on a guy's shirt, and I thought, well, that's interesting. You don't really ever see that. So being curious, I wanted to know, well, who is he? Why does he have on that shirt? You never see that on so I get up and stand in line behind him in the line to the bathroom, and I tapped him on the shoulder and said, hey, I saw your U.S. Visit logo. Tell me more about that. I'm familiar with the program, but you just don't see it. Anyway, he went on to share with me who he was. His name was Jim Williams. He was the Undersecretary for Homeland Security, and he was leading the U.S. Visit. And as soon as he said his name, of course I knew who it was, because his name was written on my whiteboard as the key stakeholder that we needed to meet. So anyway, ended up standing in line talking to him for the rest of the flight in the back galley of the aircraft. We ended up building a great relationship, and Accenture was our partner on that, and we ended up securing that deal with Homeland Security and Customs and Border Patrol. It was about $1 billion worth of revenue for Dell over the course of the contract. So anyway, that was definitely one of the highlights. When your boss calls you and says, have you done the calculation on the commission check that you're going to get for that? It's going to be, I hadn't actually, because, Lisa, that isn't my motivator. And it's ironic that I'm a sales leader and money wasn't my motivator.
Right.
Now, it was always great. Don't get me wrong. I loved getting the paycheck, but it wasn't my motivator. Right. And I think that goes to also some emotional intelligence, in that I have always prided myself and been an authentic business partner with my clients. And this is one of the things that I love when I'm interviewing people for sales, is trying to find out, are they authentic? And people can smell it a mile away, right? There's a reason that there's that analogy for salespeople, is because we're not authentic. And so the thing about authenticity is, if you, and this is why I've never minded being in sales, is because no matter what company I'm working for, we are trying to help people solve their problem, whatever that problem might be, whether it's they need a new car, like in your industry, right? Somebody needs a new car, someone needs a home, someone needs a mortgage, right? New house, new car, new mortgage, whatever the case is. And if you have positioned yourself in a place of value, then when that need arises, you're going to be the person that they look for. And so what I would tell salespeople is, be authentic and try to solve your clients' problems. And here's the thing, if you're not curious and you haven't taken the time to invest and get to know what their problems are, then you can't align your product or service to it. So
Robin, why don't we talk about discovery? Because I think that's where some keys to emotional intelligence is, number one is, to me, is discovery. And then, a big lack of emotional intelligence is desperation, right? Like, people can feel it, they can smell it, they can sniff it, they just want to go take a bath. But let's, talking about discovery, I think that that's where so many people miss the boat. They go into it and they just show up and they say, okay, let's just do this deal. And here's my presentation. And they haven't taken the time to do the discovery to understand what problem it is that they're solving. Because I love that you said that. We're not there to make a check. We're not there to sell them something. We're there to solve a problem. And either you come into mutual agreement or you don't. Because sometimes you won't. Because
no
we don't always have
no harm. No harm, no foul. Right.
Exactly. But to me, where emotional intelligence really screws a deal is when you realize it's that aha moment when you're like, ooh, we're not in alignment, or maybe our solution's not the best for your problem. Now, all of a sudden, here comes desperation, right? Now we go into salesperson mode. No, I mean, we're no longer a consultant for that stakeholder. We are a salesperson. And to me, that's where people screw the pooch.
Yeah, agreed. And
emotionally intelligent, but I'm just saying that's, to me, the exodus. That is when the deal is lost.
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. And during discovery, like you talked about, so I have a couple of beliefs, and that is, I'm embarrassed to admit this, but 15 years ago, I would ask a CIO, what's keeping you awake at night? And that's great, right? That's fine. That's an okay question. But actually, I should come to that conversation knowing what's keeping him or her awake at night. And so the discovery piece is the curiosity, but it's also knowing your industry, knowing your client, doing your research ahead of time. One of the things I loved about working at Gartner, I was, their regional manager for Texas and Oklahoma. And one of the things that I loved about working there is they said for every hour that you spend with a customer, you need to spend that exact amount of time, if not more, in preparation for that discovery meeting. So you would read their financial documents that were posted online. You got an understanding of their industry. What were the things that were relevant in that meeting? So in the discovery process, you already come with your hypothesis of how you're going to help that person based on what you already know. And so that also ties, by the way, to another one of my core beliefs, which is the adding value in every single interaction with that person. So whether it's the discovery meeting, whether it's your very first email to them trying to get the meeting, or your very first phone call trying to get the meeting, you should be adding value in that very first touch. And so then when you go into that discovery meeting, they actually want to talk to you because you've already built credibility in your very first reach out to them that shows them, I want to talk to this person because they know what I'm going through. But in that discovery, it's asking them the questions, asking 5 levels of questions. Why, why is that? Why is that bothering you? Is there, what have you tried? Who on your team is dealing with this? I mean, constant getting to the bottom of what's really going on in the organization. What has your boss asked you to do? When do you have to have it done? And who on your team is helping you deliver that? And what's going to happen if you don't? And then that gets to the emotional intelligence part, because that ties right into what is that emotion that you are going to trigger that's going to get that person, fear is a pretty big motivator. In fact, I think that psychology would tell you fear is the #1 motivator when it comes to getting people to do something.
So what is your advice? You're sitting in front of a stakeholder and you can read it all over them. Their numbers are dropping. They're behind, they're behind from last quarter. You're sitting there. You truly believe that you have got the solution, that you have got the product or the service that can take, their numbers, their team to the next level. You can pull them out of being stuck, blah, blah, blah. What does Robin play on? Do you play on their fear? Or do you play on pulling them out of fear and putting them into imagining what success looks like? Because I've seen both. I've sat at big tables, negotiations, and somebody makes the decision, okay, we're gonna play this thing and really drive them into the ground and then bring them back up, which that isn't for me personally. Or it's, hey, we hear you, we got this. So what do you see? Because I do think that there's two different levels. I mean, there's two different ways to play the game.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways actually to play the game. It depends on what that person's profile is. So, fear is definitely a great motivator, but you never get somebody to believe something that you've told them. It has to be something that they believe. And so what I like to do is understanding, like that scenario that you were saying about they can't close the quarter, they're behind, blah, 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 right? You could sit there and build on, they already know that. So I would pull on, what are you going to do to get out of this situation, right? What is the game plan? What happens if you don't get out of this situation? Sometimes people just are stuck and they won't move regardless. The fear paralyzes them, right? But in that scenario, what you have to do as a seller is you have to get them to come up with the solution. Not, you can't come up with the solution and give it to them. You have to guide them to the solution that you're trying to sell them, basically. I don't like fear as a big motivator, but that's what some people are driven by. And so I think you do walk them down what would happen, what would it mean, and what would it mean to you personally, right? Not just from the business perspective, and then that's where you go back to some of your earlier discovery meetings where you figure out, what is their motivator? Are they trying to get promoted in the next 6 months? Are they afraid they're going to lose their job if they don't hit this? So that's where all of that discovery of really understanding the underlying, what's really going on in that organization and what's going to motivate that person.
Okay, so shifting, putting your cap on, because I like to keep these at a solid 30 minutes, but putting your cap on, you are the salesperson, and the stakeholder, the other person is sitting in front of you, but this is now no longer about them, it's about you. And, you start to see now the prospect or the stakeholder, however you want to identify this person, you start to see them losing it, right? You start to see them get combative. You start to see them, not really liking what you have to say. Because a lot of times, when we're in these situations, all we're doing is just holding up a mirror based on our discovery. Yeah. And that's embarrassing sometimes for the other party. It's a lot of things, right? You and I have been in some really big, tough negotiations. So that being said, you are sitting there, you are the account executive, whatever it may be, and the stakeholder is just really starting to lose it. They're becoming combative. They're arguing with you. And that could be anything. That could be if you're selling a house, a car, insurance, whatever. The person on the other side starts to argue, and it's because, and they're a lot of times, Robin, they're doing it out of fear, right? Because you have now really exposed or really driven in the fact that that they have a problem. What is the best course of action if you're sitting on the other side of the table trying to bring that person back around so you can make the deal?
I mean, my gut reaction right there, Lisa, is saying, what conversation are we having, or what part of this narrative is causing you to have this response? Right? Mm-hmm. Like, I think that's where if it's getting confrontational and it's getting head on, I think you just hit it right there with, okay, time out. What is causing, you are having a pretty strong emotional reaction right now to this conversation. What is it about this that is causing you this, display, this reaction to this? Like, help me understand. And what are you going to, if you don't do business with me, right? Let's take me off the table. What are you going to do to solve this problem, right? And diffuse it from what's really going on? What is causing this emotion so severe? And then secondly, if you do nothing with me, right, I'll remove myself from the situation. What are you going to do? Does the problem go away? What is your game plan, right? And just kind of, those would be the two first things that come to mind if I were in an environment like that.
And I agree with you. And, one of my other tactics has been, to pause, like, and to literally tell them, I think we should pause this meeting for now. I think we should reschedule. Obviously you've got some concerns and I have some more research, or I'd like to, look into some other solutions for you. I had a lady a couple of weeks ago, and it was a divorce situation. And she, when I get there to go list the house, I was referred by an attorney, and I get there and I figure out about 3 minutes, she doesn't want to sell this house. She has to sell this house.
She's being forced to.
And it's just not good. And so I just said, you know what? Let's just pause. Let's just pause for now. I understand how you feel. I can tell. I mean, it's obvious to me you don't want to sell this house. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to figure out a way to help you keep the house. Maybe there's some other ways you can go.
Yeah.
Maybe you can finance. Maybe we can do this and pay him the equity. And she's like, my attorney didn't even tell me that. And I said, your attorney's got one job, and that's to get you divorced. My job is to help you provide a solution that you can sleep at night, and so
that's your emotional right there, right? That is your emotional intelligence kicking in, right?
Yeah, it's just like, okay, I get it. We don't want to sell the house. Let's go to plan B.
Right.
I don't have to sell your house. And so I think that's the other problem with sales professionals, is that they can get really one-tracked on one solution, the one thing, right? And so to be able to think more broadly.
Like, take me out of it, right? Just like that whole, like, take me out of it. I'm not going to sell you a house, or I'm not going to put your house on the market, right?
So
what is another solution for you?
Do to get this dude his money, because that's all he wants at the end of the day.
Right.
He wants to be off the phone and he wants to get paid. So I don't have to sell the house to do that. Okay. And so anyways, Robin, I could talk to you forever.
That's great.
So very much for coming on. I hope that you come back. I want to throw a disclaimer out there. When Robin talks about hiring people, she hired my daughter and gave my daughter a chance. And my daughter has absolutely crushed it at Gartner because of your belief in her, in hiring her and putting her in a position that nobody else would, gave her a shot to do. And so I'm forever grateful. So what I can tell everybody out there who's watching this, when Robin talks about leadership principles, and I know my daughter's on here, she 100,000,000% walks her talk every day when it comes to her people. And I know that my daughter still misses you every day.
Oh, I miss her. I miss her too.
Yes.
All right, Lisa, real quick, I want to wrap up and tell you. So I looked up the emotional intelligence to actually see what the definition of it was. And I wrote it down because it was so good. And I wanted all of your folks to really absorb this from a sales perspective. So it's the capability of an individual to recognize emotions, your own and those of others, discern between different feelings, and then label them appropriately. How do you use those emotions to drive behavior and thinking to achieve your goals and the goals of the other? And I just love that. I mean, that is exactly, like, that is my battle cry right there, whether it's me as an individual solving business problems with my clients or leading a team of salespeople. I mean, that's what I want to hire right there.
Right. Somebody who understands that premise, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Because this is a live sales meeting for all of our real estate organization, but this is emotional intelligence is for your personal life, it's for your business life, it's for your life. Like, the people who just come unraveled every time you talk to them, they're just unraveled, and you're like, okay, whoa,
they're exhausting.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? So like, hold it together, and especially nowadays with what's going on in the world, it's just better to sometimes refrain, step back, and start your own text group or something.
Exactly. Well, thanks for having me, and it was great having Alex. I knew she would be amazing because I think she had been in sales her whole life, having you as a mom, and she just crushed it, and it was fun to see where she came in. And then it was a lot of fun to be able to give her some coaching, a year in, and then watch her go up a level. So
she is better.
Great to have her.
I can tell you that. She is better for having you. All right, my friend, thank you again.
Thanks.
Hey, guys and gals, if you're not a member of Big Sellers Mastermind on Facebook, join it, because these meetings will end up with, starting next week, will only be shown in there. But I wanted to show you the great value. I will be live again tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'm confirming my great guest. Once I've got confirmation, I'll put it up on Facebook. But only rock stars allowed. Only rock stars allowed. All right, Robin, thanks again, my friend.
Thanks. Bye.